Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. Here we are, Season 4, Episode 1. In prior seasons, the way we started this thing off is giving our predictions, going through the off season, everything like that. As you can see, I'm by myself right now today. A lot of the times last season, I had special guests on, and maybe, hint, hint, you're going to see more of that. Today I'm just alone, mainly because there's a lot of stuff to get through, and I feel like having multiple people here, it would only be longer, and I'm not trying to put out like a 2.5 hour episode, because I know odds are nobody's probably going to watch that all the way through. But you know what? Let's just hop right into it. Starting off, we're going to grade every team's off season. This is how we started it last season, and we're kind of going to go in alphabetical order, starting here with the Atlanta Hawks. Now, before I get into this, I am recording this on October 5th at 1:58 p.m. Eastern Time right now. So if anything happens after that, up until the time this gets uploaded, please forgive me, because I am not going to be recognizing those moves. I don't think anything really would happen. It seems like every big move has already happened, but just want to put that out there. So the Atlanta Hawks grading their offseason. The big fish was DeJounte Murray. They got him from the Spurs, adding Justin Holiday, AJ Griffin in the draft. They got Aaron Holiday, Frank Kaminsky, Tyrese Martin in the draft, Jarrett Culver they just picked up, and Armani Brooks. They did lose guys like Danilo Gallinari and Kevin Huerter. Those are probably the big two. Also, DeLon Wright, he was pretty important as a backup last year. Gorgui Dieng didn't really play too much. And then guys like Kevin Knox, Sharif Cooper, Wesley Iwundu. But the notes is that I have a little bit of a note kind of for every team. The note I have for them is that DeAndre Hunter, he's currently healthy, and he played really good in the playoffs last year. I would argue he's better than Trae Young in the playoffs last year. So honestly, their offseason, yes, they did probably get a little bit better with DeJounte Murray. I think losing guys like Gallinari and Huerter, no pun intended, but it hurts them. But I'm going to give them a B-. Kind of like an average offseason, maybe a little bit better than average. But yeah, so moving on to the Celtics, we're going to kind of get through these a little bit quick. Adding Malcolm Brogdon is huge. I think he might be the most important pickup, or one of, at least, in the offseason. You also got Gallinari. Of course, he's injured. They drafted J.D. Davidson. They just picked up Blake Griffin. And they got Mfiondu Kabengele and Noah Vonleh they just picked up, but I wouldn't be surprised if they waived him by the time this gets uploaded. They also lost Daniel Tice, Aaron Naismith, Nick Stauskas, Juwan Morgan, Malik Fitz. A lot of those guys from the Brogdon trade, not really huge. Now, their notes is that Robert Williams is going to be out like 4 to 6 weeks. Of course, Gallinari tore his ACL, probably will miss the whole year. And then Ime Udoka, he's suspended for the whole season. That's a huge loss. And I think that plays a role in their offseason. So I'm going to give him a B. I would have probably given him an A if probably the Udoka thing didn't happen and the injuries. But I'm going to give him a B simply because of that. The Nets add TJ Warren, Royce O'Neal, Edmund Sumner, Alondes Williams. I mean, they got a little bit better, I would say. They did lose Drummond, Bruce Brown, Goran Dragic, and Blake. But Kyrie, he's available. Ben Simmons, he's healthy. And they kind of at least stalled the Durant trade rumors too. So I'm honestly going to give them an A-. It might seem high, but they got through it, and they did get better. So I'm excited kind of to see the Nets this year. Charlotte Hornets, they drafted Mark Williams, Bryce McGowan as well. Dennis Smith Jr. they just picked up. And right now they currently have LiAngelo Ball on the roster. They did lose Miles Bridges, unfortunately. They couldn't really do anything really about that. Montrezl Harrell they lost. Kind of a similar situation, but not really. And then Alondes Kuboka, not really an X factor. I just didn't want to leave anyone off, so I have everybody on here. But yeah, Miles Bridges, I mean, his rights were released after the incident. Who knows if he'll end up on a team or on the Hornets again. So I'm going to give him a D+. It's unfortunate for them. It's not really anything they could have done. I mean, they just kind of got bad luck. The Chicago Bulls adding Drummond, Dalen Terry in the draft. He looked really nice the other day in preseason against the Pelicans. Goran Dragic, Justin Lewis, Kostas Antetokounmpo, and then Javon Freeman Liberty. They lost Troy Brown Jr., also Devin Dotson went to the Wizards. Lonzo Ball's injury, though, this is the note, is that it's worse than anticipated. He's not going to be ready to start the year. But overall, the Bulls really didn't lose anything. Like, they lost Troy Brown Jr., who didn't really contribute at all last year. You add Drummond, Dalen Terry, and Dragic, I think you automatically get better based on the fact that they didn't really lose any contributing players. Yes, Lonzo's injured, but Pat Williams is healthy, and he didn't play but like 10 games last year. Alex Caruso is healthy. So I'm also going to give the Bulls a B-. I think a lot of people are underrating their offseason a little bit. The Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell, huge acquisition. Getting Ricky Rubio back. Of course, he's injured right now. Robin Lopez, Raul Neto, Isaiah Mobley in the draft, Sharif Cooper as well. They did lose Sexton, Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, although he didn't play for him, and then Moses Brown. I'm going to give him an A. I think that getting Donovan Mitchell is huge for this team. That's just what they needed, and I'm excited to see where they go. Dallas Mavericks adding Christian Wood. That was their big fish. JaVale McGee, Jaden Hardy in the draft, Tyler Dorsey, McKinley Wright IV, and Mohamedou Gai. I don't know how to say his name. I'm sorry. He probably will not play much for them. If he does, then you can come back to this and roast me. They lost Jalen Brunson, Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, Marquise Chris, Boban Marjanovic, and Moses Wright. Now, the notes is that, Tim Hardaway Jr., he's expected to be healthy. So I think them losing Brunson really isn't as bad as people think. And you added Christian Wood in the meantime, and Tim Hardaway can take Brunson's position. So I'm going to give him actually a B. The Denver Nuggets, adding Bruce Brown, KCP, Ish Smith, drafting Christian Braun, DeAndre Jordan's on the team, Peyton Watson in the draft, Ish Kamagate in the draft, Adonis Arms, Kellen Grady, Colin Gillespie, Jack White, and Justin Tillman. Yes, they added a lot of pieces. I'm sure a lot of those guys will probably get cut or sent to the G League before the season starts. They lost Monte Morris and Will Barton. Those are probably the big ones. Also Brent Forbes, JaMychal Green, Austin Rivers, and then Marcus Howard. But Jamal Murray's healthy, and that's huge. And so is Michael Porter Jr. So overall, I think I'm going to give him actually a B+. I do like the addition of KCP and Bruce Brown. And Colin Gillespie is kind of an underrated pickup for an undrafted player as well. Detroit Pistons, adding Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren in the draft. They just traded for Bojan Bogdanovic, which I think is huge. Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Kemba Walker, all those guys are veterans. Kevin Knox, Gabriel Procida, and Buddy Boeheim. Don't know too much about them, but who knows? We might find out more about them. So Jeremy Grant and Carson Edwards, those are the two major losses. Obviously, Jeremy Grant was kind of like their best player the past few years. You could argue actually Cade was probably better, but I mean Jeremy Grant was their leading scorer last year. And then Kemba Walker, that's kind of looking towards a buyout. Overall, though, I'm going to give them an A. I mean, I think that they're perfectly set up for in about 3-4 years, they're going to be a really good team. Golden State Warriors, they added Dante DiVincenzo, drafted Patrick Baldwin. He looked nice in the preseason game the other day. Ryan Rollins in the draft, Guy Santos in the draft, JaMychal Green, Lester Quinones, Quindary Weatherspoon, Trevion Williams, who, I mean, if you guys remember last year when I believe when I had Haley Jordan on as a guest, she talked about him. He went to Purdue. I've seen a lot of him as well. I think that he's kind of an underrated pickup. And then Pat Spencer as well. They lost Gary Payton II, Otto Porter Jr., Juan Toscano Anderson, Damian Lee, and Nemanja Bjelica. I think, also James Wiseman is healthy, or he should be healthy at least. So I'm going to give him, and this might be controversial, I'm going to give him a C+. I mean, I think losing Gary Payton and Otto Porter is huge based on how they contributed last year. Even to some extent, Juan Toscano Anderson, I know sometimes he had good days, sometimes he had bad, but they didn't really get anything game-changing. Maybe DiVincenzo a little bit, or Pat Baldwin. I really don't think so, though. The Rockets, drafting Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Ty Washington. That's huge for the draft. They got Cauley Stein, Boban, Trevor Hudgens, Derek Favors, Mo Harkless, Theo Maledon. I mean, a lot of those guys probably won't matter too much because the team is not going to be great. They lost Christian Wood. They lost John Wall, Trevelyan Queen, and David Nwaba too. Now, it should be noted John Wall was bought out. I'm going to give them a C, though, because I think that they probably could have handled some of those situations a little better. Seems like they could have got more for Christian Wood, and the whole John Wall thing, I think they probably could have got something for him rather than buy him out last year. The Pacers drafting Ben Maturin, Andrew Nemhard as well, Kendall Brown, Hugo Besson, Daniel Tice, Aaron Naismith, and Langston Galloway. They really didn't make much of an impact other than probably Benedict Maturin in the draft. They did get a lot of pieces in the draft, so I'm sure they're going to use some of those guys like Nemhard and Brown too, so we'll see. They lost Brogdon, though. They lost Rubio, even though he didn't play for them. They lost T.J. Warren. They lost Dwayne Washington Jr., and they also lost the chance to get DeAndre Ayton when they matched his contract. So I'm going to give him a C+. Not really much else to be said. The Clippers, adding John Wall, Moses Brown, Musa Diabate, Diabate. I'm not really sure how to say his name, but he's a big man for them as well. And then Juwan Morgan, who they just picked up the other day. They did lose Hartenstein and Jay Scrubb, but Kawhi Leonard is healthy. Paul George is healthy. John Wall is going to be ready. I'm going to give him an A-. I think that they had a really good offseason, and they're going to be a really good team. The Lakers, adding Patrick Beverley, Dennis Schroeder's back, Lonnie Walker, Thomas Bryant, Juan Toscano Anderson, Damian Jones, Troy Brown Jr., drafting Max Christie, Scottie Pippen Jr., Cole Swider, Devontae McCoy, Fabian White, and Jay Huff. They did lose Malik Monk. Right now I'm saying they lost Carmelo Anthony and Dwight Howard. Those guys very well could be back, but even if they do come back, they're not going to have a huge role probably. Kent Bazemore, Mac McClung, Taylor Horton-Tucker, and Stanley Johnson. So I'm honestly going to give them a C-. Yes, they added Patrick Beverley. I think every other acquisition they have is nothing, really. I mean, maybe Schroeder because he's a little familiar with the system, but I don't see a lot of those other guys. Maybe Lonnie Walker could break out a little bit, but I think Malik Monk is probably the best player of everyone I just listed, and they just lost him. So Memphis Grizzlies adding Danny Green, Jake LaRavia, David Roddy, Kennedy Chandler, Vince Williams Jr., Kenneth Lofton Jr., aka the younger Zach Randolph 2.0. Jacob Gilyard and Dakota Mathias. They did lose Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, and I've never really known how to say his name, Yavis Pons. I think that's how you say it. Jaren Jackson Jr., though, is going to miss about 4 to 6 months. He's probably not going to be ready until it's in January, but it was reported in July as 4 to 6 months. So because of that, and because they lost Kyle Anderson, who was kind of their other power forward, they lost DeAnthony Melton for essentially nothing. I'm actually going to give them a C-. The Miami Heat drafting Nikola Jovic. They got Jamari Bouya, Jamal Cain, Orlando Robinson, and Darius Days. They only really lost PJ Tucker, but I think he's probably more impactful at this stage than maybe all those guys combined. And apparently Kyle Lowry failed Pat Riley's challenge to lose some weight this offseason, which is probably seen as a joke considering how people view Kyle Lowry. But I think that's critical, and I don't know if the Heat are going to have the same success this year as they did last year. I'm a little concerned, so I'm going to give them a C-. The Milwaukee Bucks, so they added Joe Ingles, who I don't think he'll be ready by the start of the season because obviously he got injured last year. AJ Green, Marjan Beauchamp as well. He was their first rounder. And then they lost Rajon Tucker. They re-signed a lot of guys like Wes Matthews, George Hill, Bobby Portis too. I'm going to give him a B-. Not really much to be said. The Timberwolves, now they added Gobert, Kyle Anderson, Bryn Forbes, Eric Paschall, Austin Rivers, Wendell Moore Jr. in the draft, Josh Minot in the draft, C.J. Ellaby, A.J. Lawson. They lost a lot of guys, though, too, like Malik Beasley, Pat Beverly, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Bolmero, Josh Okogie. They got a ton of draft picks for Rudy Gobert, and they lost a lot of draft picks for Rudy Gobert. There's a lot of info I'm trying to relay here. I'm kind of twisting my words. No, they lost a lot of draft picks for Rudy Gobert. So I think that should also be taken into account. It's kind of a win now move for the Timberwolves. They did lose a lot of depth. I'm going to give them a C minus because there's still some question marks. The Pelicans, they drafted Dyson Daniels, EJ Liddell, and Daquan Plowden. No real losses, but Zion Williamson is healthy and looks leaner, so I'm going to give him a B. The Knicks getting Jalen Brunson, Isaiah Hartenstein, and Trevor Keels in the draft. They lost Kemba Walker. They lost Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, and Taj Gibson. The notes, though, is that Derrick Rose, he said himself he's 100% healthy, so I'm going to give him a B. The OKC Thunder, they drafted guys like Chet Holmgren, Ousmane Dieng, Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams. They got Eugene Omorui, Sacha Killier-Jones. These guys probably are not going to contribute much. Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, Marquise Chris, David Nwaba. They also lost guys like Isaiah Roby, Xavier Simpson, Derek Favors, and Theo Maledon. Of course, Chet is out for the season already, unfortunately. So I'm going to give him a C. Orlando Magic, they drafted Paolo Banchero, Caleb Houston. They got Xavier Simpson, Kavon Harris, Simi Shitu, and Drake Jeffries. And then we got Robin Lopez and Ignas Brazdeikis are their key losses. Of course, Markelle Fultz, he had a toe fracture. He's not going to be ready by the start of the season, some are saying. But it says that he should be. It's just a lot of people are kind of making that speculation. But he is out for the time being. So that's just another kind of, bad luck charm, I guess. Gary Harris, though, has a torn meniscus. I'm going to give him a B minus, though. The 76ers, they added P.J. Tucker, DeAnthony Melton, Daniel House, Montrezl Harrell, Michael Foster, Trevelyan Queen, and Julian Champagne. Losing Danny Green, DeAndre Jordan, and Miles Powell don't really mean anything, and James Harden looks leaner. Give this team an A minus. Phoenix Suns adding Damian Lee, Josh Okogie, Jacques Landale, Dwayne Washington Jr., Timothy Luau-Cabarrot just the other day, TLC. They lost JaVale McGee, Aaron Holiday, Frank Kaminsky, and Gabriel Lundberg. Of course, they matched DeAndre Ayton's offer sheet, but overall, I'm going to give them a C+. They didn't really do much, in my opinion. The Trailblazers, Jeremy Grant, drafting Shaedon Sharpe, drafting Jabari Walker. They got GP the second, Jared Rhoden, Isaiah Miller, Wesley Iwundu. They lost Bledsoe, Ingles, Ellaby, Dennis Smith Jr., and Cody Zeller. Joe Ingles, of course, never played from, and Shaedon Sharpe is the mystery man, so give this team probably a C+. Sacramento Kings drafting Keegan Murray, who I believe was the Summer League MVP. He was insane out there. They got Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, Kent Bazemore, Matthew Dellavedova, KZ Okpala, Quinn Cook, Chima Monique, Keon Ellis, and Sam Merrill, who I believe was actually on the Bucks too. Dante DiVincenzo, Mo Harkless, Justin Holiday, and Damian Jones are the big losses, and they're going to have Sabonis for a full year. Now, I'm actually going to give them an A-. I think the Kings actually had a really good offseason, kind of an underrated offseason. San Antonio Spurs drafting Jeremy Sochan, Malaki Branham, Blake Wesley, Isaiah Roby. They got Gorky Jane, they got Dominic Barlow, and they got Jordan Hall. Of course, they lost DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, and Jacques Landale. Greg Popovich, though, is still coaching. But overall, I'm going to give this team a D. Seemed like they kind of handled the DeJounte Murray thing wrong. Probably could have brought back Lonnie Walker. And overall, they just look like a terrible team. No offense. Toronto Raptors getting Otto Porter Jr., Juan Hernan Gomez, Christian Coloco in the draft, DJ Wilson, Jeff Dowden, Ron Harper Jr., and Gabe Brown. They didn't really lose anything. OG Anunoby is currently healthy. But overall, I'm not really moved by their additions, and I'm still not sold on their backcourt in terms of the depth. Not their starting lineup. Like Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., that's solid. But who's going to be the next guy? Like, is Malachi Flynn going to take that jump this year? We don't know. He looked good in the offseason. I believe in the Toronto event he was killing it, but I'm still going to give him a C+ for the time being. Utah Jazz, they got Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Balmero, Walker Kessler in the draft, THT, Cody Zeller, Stanley Johnson, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, Simone Foticio, and Johnny Juzang. Of course, they lost Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Bojan Bogdanovic, Royce O'Neal, Daniel House, Juan Hernan-Gomez, Trent Forrest, Eric Paschall, and Jawan Morgan. And you can probably expect that soon Mike Conley, Rudy Gay, and Jordan Clarkson will be joining them as well. They got a ton of draft picks for Rudy Gobert in the trade, but overall, I'm actually going to give him an F. I think those picks will be useful down the line, but I just think that they handled the whole Gobert and Mitchell situation wrong. I think that they could have either got more back for Donovan Mitchell, first of all. They got a lot back for Rudy Gobert, but I think they kind of like lowballed Donovan Mitchell. And at the same time, I don't know. I think that they could have just taken other routes to make it work. And the Washington Wizards, Will Barton, Monte Morris, Johnny Davis in the draft, DeLon Wright, Taj Gibson, Makur Maker, and then they lost KCP, Thomas Bryant, Raul Neto, Ish Smith, Thomas Satoransky, and Cassius Winston. They just got Beal in the extension, but I'm going to give them a D. Not really moved. So now let's go to the standings. Starting in the East, the 15th seed, give me the Indiana Pacers. 19-63, I got them on the year. Like I said, it wasn't really moved by a lot of their pieces. They're probably just going to be a rebuilding team. At 14, give me the Washington Wizards at 24-58. Again, I gave them a bad rating. I just don't see how the Wizards are going to fare this year. A lot of teams got better. The Wizards were already not in the play-in jump. Bradley Beal didn't really look great last year. And it wasn't really – he did get injured, but it didn't seem like he was playing with an injury prior to that. So I'm really not sold on the Wizards. 13th, I got the Orlando Magic at 28-54. I think that they are going to surpass the goal that the kid wanted Cole Anthony and his team to get, and he said we'll get more than 22 wins. I think they will get more than 22 wins, but they're still going to be somewhere down there. Markelle Fultz when he gets healthy. Obviously, they got the first overall pick in Paolo Banchero. If Jonathan Isaac plays, it seems like a mystery is going on right now with him. I saw the other day, I believe they started Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba, so we'll see. Maybe that's something they use this season. But yeah, 12th, I got the Charlotte Hornets. They still have LaMelo. Gordon Hayward is supposed to be healthy too. Didn't really put that in the notes, but that also helps them out a little bit. But losing Miles Bridges is really tough. The 11th seed, I actually have the Detroit Pistons. I think they'll win 35 games this season, and I think Cade is going to take a jump. He might even be an all-star this year. I think that, Jaden Ivey around him is nice. I like that they actually got a veteran presence in the starting lineup and, Bojan Bogdanovic, but overall, I'm just kind of excited to see what the Pistons do this year. 10th, give me the New York Knicks. They did get better. They did, but I don't know how much better they got. I really don't even think they're in a class with the next few teams I'm about to list. So I think 36 wins, 36-46 is huge. But yeah. 9 seed. Now this is tough, but I'm actually going with the Toronto Raptors. I feel like I'm alone in this, and it's kind of funny because I personally think the Toronto Raptors are becoming a little overrated. Might just be me, but I've seen a lot of people saying they're going to be like a top 4 team, top 5 team. I just don't see it. They were top 5 last year, yes, but you count all the injuries that happened to all the other teams too. I get the Raptors had their own injuries, but if we're comparing injuries, I think that probably the teams that finished 6th, 7th, and 8th, record-wise, all had more injuries than they did last year. I'm not bought on the Raptors' depth for the bench either. I get that they have a solid coach, but they didn't really do anything in the offseason either. So give me the Raptors at 9th. I think Scotty Barnes has become a little overrated. I think he's still a great player, but I think he's become a little overrated. It's kind of funny because my dad would always, tell me, he's like, Scotty Barnes is overrated. And I was like, what? Like, no, he isn't. Now I'm over here sitting like, he's kind of right, at least in my opinion. No offense to Scotty Barnes and his fans, but I just had to get that out there. The number 8 seed, though, I got the Atlanta Hawks. They did get a little better with DeJounte Murray, but the East got a lot better too, and that's why they're still going to be around that 8 seed, 9 seed spot. At number 7, I got the Chicago Bulls. I know a lot of people are trying to like diminish them and say that their offseason sucked and whatever. But personally for me, I think you add a rebounding presence, which is something they really lacked last year in Drummond. Goran Dragic is going to have, nobody's saying he's going to be as good as he was 2 years ago, but I think he's definitely going to be better than he was last year when he sat out basically all but the last month of the season. So he's definitely not going to be nearly as rusty. And then Dalen Terry, I think, is a low-key great draft pick. He plays with energy. He's a good defender, and he's kind of a versatile wing, and I think that's just what the Bulls needed. You replace him in the spot of Troy Brown Jr., I think that's a huge upgrade. Number 6, give me the Miami Heat. Losing P.J. Tucker, I mean, before he got there last year, they were the 6th seed as well. I think the East is just too deep, and they didn't really make any huge acquisitions. Number 5, I actually have Boston. I was tempted to put them really high, actually, until all this news came out with Udoka and Robert Williams and Gallinari. So now I think it's all going to be a close race, but I'm going to have to put them at 5. At number 4, give me the Brooklyn Nets. I think they're going to be better this year. They're definitely going to be more motivated. All of them, all their big three, Kyrie, KD, and Ben Simmons, they all have something to prove in their own right. And there's also guys that kind of like TJ Warren and Joe Harris, people that either got slandered or like they've completely forgotten about. They're going to be proving something as well. So I think that they're going to have a solid season all around. Number 3, give me the Bucks. Not much to be said. Just they're the Bucks. I mean, they got Giannis. He's arguably the best player in the league. Chris Middleton, he's going to be back. He's not going to be injured like he was in the playoffs last year. Drew Holiday, of course, too, but I don't think they'll be the 1 seed because I don't think they'll care to get the 1 seed. Number 2, I actually have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that they'll definitely put a lot of effort in the regular season. I think a lot of people have been kind of hating on Donovan Mitchell in particular. I think he's going to want to try and, show the haters up. And really, this team, when healthy last year, was pretty good. I mean, remember, there was a time where they were top 3, top 4 in the East last year, too. And that was before a lot of the injuries happened. So you had a guy like Donovan Mitchell in there for basically you took out Markkanen and put in Donovan Mitchell. Because Sexton wasn't really playing at that time. The draft pick, Agbaji, he wasn't on the team. So it's basically like you replace Markkanen with Mitchell, and that's a huge upgrade. And number 1, give me the Philadelphia 76ers. I think it's going to be just like not last year, but the year before. They're going to be the number 1 seed. I think Harden's going to have a better season this year. I think Embiid, once again, will be an MVP candidate. Adding P.J. Tucker and DeAnthony Melton is huge. Even Daniel House could be a good addition in some sense too, but that's my East. So now let's move to the West. Starting 15, I got the San Antonio Spurs. They're going to be 14-68. Yeah, and I know people are going to be like, well, they're the Spurs. They're going to win a lot of games because they got Greg Popovich. No. This team is just too bad, and I think people forget, it's not always been the case every season like that with Greg Popovich. You could go back to his first season coaching, and they were the second worst team in basketball. They won, I believe, 19 or 20 games that season in 96, 97. That was the year that they ended up getting the first pick, and they ended up getting Tim Duncan. Now, I get it, David Robinson missed most of that year, but they also had guys like Dominique Wilkins and Sean Elliott, and they had a lot of guys in their prime. So, I don't know. I think personally they're just not good enough, and I don't think he can save them. If Keldon Johnson, no offense to Keldon Johnson, but if he's your best player at this stage, I don't know how far they're really going to go. But yeah, so the 14 seed, I got OKC. Chet Holmgren, who was supposed to be their big acquisition, now he's out for the whole year. It's just going to be another city in Tank Town for Oklahoma City. Another year in Tank Town. You know what I meant. Okay. The 13 seed, the Houston Rockets, they get a little better with, Jabari Smith as well. But overall, I mean, they're losing Christian Wood. They didn't really make huge upgrades. I think some of those guys are going to develop better. Like maybe Jalen Green will have a better year. He played well at the end of last season, so maybe this season he's more consistent throughout. So that's a good sign for them. But overall, they're not going to be making much noise. Number 12, I got the Utah Jazz. They might trade these guys, like I said, like Conley, Rudy Gay, Jordan Clarkson. But overall, I mean, like, they're probably going to have him for a decent amount of time, maybe till the trade deadline. So they're going to win some games because of that. Number 11, I actually have the Sacramento Kings, even though I praised their offseason. 36 and 46, I have them. But it's one of those things, and I want the King. I would love to see the Kings at least in the play-in. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I need to see it to believe it. You know what I mean? So it's nothing against the Kings. I think the Kings have an argument over maybe some of these teams. At least maybe 1, 2, maybe like 1 to 3 of these teams. You could have an argument over, in my opinion. But until they do it, I'm just gonna hold off, I guess. Now number 10 in the play-in, my 10 seed, I got the Los Angeles Lakers. They didn't get much better. Sure, I would expect them to have a better year than they did last year. Just with that much talent on the team, you wouldn't think that they'd win 33 games again. Now, granted, I would argue they got worse in terms of like them all around. Like if they brought the same team back, I probably would have them like 41 and 41. Now I have them like 39 and 43. So I think they actually did get worse. But granted, I think that they're still going to find their spot, at least maybe like at the end of the play-in. They will most likely be in the play-in. That's what I'm saying. Number 9, give me the Timberwolves. This might be a surprise. I'm just not bought in to the Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns pairing. I think we saw like what the Warriors, for example, did to teams like the Celtics with Al Horford and Rob Williams. You just can't really run 2 centers like that can't move their feet on the perimeter at once. You're going to have to stagger them. And if you stagger them, I mean, you're limiting how much Gobert and or Cat can contribute. Most likely, I would think it would be Gobert because, I mean, Cat's been there longer. He's kind of been like their guy. And I think he can just do more on the offensive end too. So I actually have them 9th. At number 8, I have the Portland Trailblazers. Look, Damian Lillard, I mean, last season got injured, of course. But prior to that, I mean, the last like 8 so seasons, they had the longest playoff streak because Damian Lillard doesn't miss the playoffs. That's just not who he is. And I think he'll get them in there. I mean, they added Jeremy Grant, so that's huge. I think they got a little bit better defensively, so there's that. Number 7, this was tough, but I actually had the Memphis Grizzlies. I didn't like their offseason. They didn't really make any huge additions. I mean, they got Danny Green, but he's probably going to miss the whole season. He's kind of just there. So, I don't know. I really didn't like their offseason. I think part of last season, too, was a bit, I hate to say it, but a little flukish just because a lot of teams were injured. And maybe I would put them like 4th or 5th if they made a better offseason acquisition, but they really didn't, so I'm going to have to put them 7th. Number 6, give me the New Orleans Pelicans. Getting Zion on that team that was on the rise last year, I mean, I think they're going to be up there, and I think they're going to be a certified playoff team. At number 5, give me the Phoenix Suns. They're definitely going to be a playoff team. They're definitely going to be up there. I don't think they'll care as much about the regular season this year, mainly because the last 2 years they've been so far up there, and it kind of, I feel like the fatigue kind of wore down a guy like Chris Paul, for example. And I think he's kind of just going to want to take it steady, get through, get a playoff spot, maybe like in the middle of the pack, and then see where it goes from there. Number 4, I have the Golden State Warriors. Again, I don't think they're going to take the regular season nearly as crazy either. I get it. ESPN came out with a thing saying that the 8th best team in the West. Nobody believes that, I don't think. I sure hope not, because they're not. But anyways, I don't think they're going to be nearly as like motivated to the point where they're not going to have like an 18-2 start to start the year. That's just not going to happen, and that's what they did last year. People were saying they might break the 73-win record. No, they're not going to do that, and I don't think they care to do that. So, yeah. Now, at number 3, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. They're also not going to get the 1 seed. But at the same time, I think, because they're going to probably load manage a little, but at the same time, they're probably going to be playing a little bit to get that edge on Golden State for the home court advantage. Playing in Golden State is one of the hardest places to play in the league, as in recent years. So I think they'll probably be thinking about that as well. And if they're close in the standings, they might ramp it up near the end of the year, whereas Golden State, I don't know if they necessarily will, especially because you're mixing in a lot of those younger guys too. The Clippers have a lot of veterans. Now, number 2, I got the Denver Nuggets, a 58-24 record. Getting Jamal back, getting MPJ back. The Nuggets, I think, are finally going to be a great regular season finish as well. And at number 1, I actually have the Dallas Mavericks. I think this is kind of the year where, you give Luka a solid big man that could be both an inside and outside presence. I know he kind of had that in Porzingis a little bit, but he was kind of underwhelming as the inside presence. And outside, he was trying to get further and further back. It's almost like he walked his way out of Dallas all the way to Washington because he started shooting three-pointers from Washington when he was on the Mavericks. But anyways, Washington, D.C., that is. But I think, honestly, Tim Hardaway Jr., and having also, like, Christian Wood in that situation, which I'm hearing they might bring him off the bench, but they have a lot of defensive firepower, too, with Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock. They got some shooters like, Maxi Kleber. So I think they have the perfect system around Luka for the regular season and everything, and Luka's going to put up the numbers. So if they're up there, there's a great chance that he'll, get credit as one of the best players in the league at that point. Now, in terms of NBA awards, starting off with Coach of the Year, I would have the Dallas Mavericks. On here, I had them as the best record in the NBA. So I have Jason Kidd of the Dallas Mavericks. I don't think I said Jason Kidd, but I have that as my Coach of the Year, being the best record in the league. He's never won the award. He only got consideration, I think, once when he was with Milwaukee years ago. So, yeah. Sixth Man of the Year, give me Norman Powell with the Clippers. He's going to have a huge impact for sure. And the Clippers are going to be great. And I think he might average like 17, 18 a game. Most Improved Player, I got DeAndre Hunter. I think he's going to be healthy. I think after last year's playoffs, he's given me something to look forward to. And I think he's going to be most improved. Defensive Player of the Year, give me Jared Allen in Cleveland. They're going to be an elite defensive team. Now, won't all be because of Jared Allen, but I think he'll be the most important part, and I think he'll get credit where it's due for that. Rookie of the Year, now I was thinking Jaden Ivey for a little bit, but then I was also thinking, Cade's going to have the ball in his hands probably more. You just added Bogdanovich too. There's a lot of pieces over there that are trying to develop. So I'm actually going to go with Paolo Banchero, the first overall pick. He's going to have a huge opportunity in Orlando, and it seems like they're already bought into him. And my MVP, I got Luka Doncic for the Mavericks. I think it's time. Last few years, the league was trying to anoint him as the MVP, which seemed kind of annoying, seemed kind of repetitive. But I think this is probably the year that it gets done. I think that he'll probably be the league MVP this season. So moving into the play-in tourney, starting with the Eastern Conference, the 7-8 game, the Bulls and Hawks. Give me the Bulls. I think that the Bulls will win this comfortably. They're not going to lose a home playoff atmosphere game in Chicago. And then 9-10 between Toronto and New York. I got Toronto beating them. And then in the 8-9 seed between Atlanta and Toronto, I have Atlanta. I think Atlanta will still get into the playoffs as the 8 seed. Western Conference, 7-8 between Memphis and Portland. Give me Memphis, but I would not be surprised if Portland won this because of, the past. They played in the play-in, and Dame simply just went off. He went into, X Games mode. 9-10 between Minnesota and the Lakers. I think Minnesota will still win. It's really interesting. This will be an interesting game because it seems like Karl Anthony Towns always plays well as of late against Anthony Davis, but Anthony Davis always plays well against Rudy Gobert. So I don't know what we're going to get this game, but I'm going to go with Minnesota. And then the 8 seed game for them between Portland and Minnesota, I have Portland. I don't think Dame will let them surrender a playoff spot on their home court. After missing the playoffs last year, I think that he's going to want to make sure that he can get in this year. So NBA playoffs, Eastern Conference first round between the 1 seed Sixers, 8 seed Hawks. Give me the Sixers in 5. The 2 seed Cavaliers and the 7 seed Bulls. I'm going to go with the Cavaliers in 6. It pains me as a Bulls fan, but the thing is the Cavs will be a little bit of a younger team. I would not be surprised if this is a series where the Bulls could catch them off guard early on. You know, kind of like how Memphis, Minnesota was last year. And I think the Bulls have the ability to do that, and this would be a good matchup for them in the first round. Of course, I just think the Cavaliers probably have a more well-rounded team. 3 and 6, Milwaukee, Miami. Give me the Bucks in 5. I'll give the Heat a pity win. Even though 2 years ago, they got swept. Of course, they're a different team now. They did get better last year, but they got a little worse, I think, this summer. So I think they'll do better than 2021, but they're not going to be the team they were last year, of course. So I got Bucks in 5. And then 4 and 5 between Nets and Celtics. I actually have the Nets in 6. Ideally, we'd see both these teams at full strength. Last year, no Ben Simmons. The year before, no Jaylen Brown. Now they're going to play again, and who knows? I mean, I think the Nets will probably win, though. Western Conference first round, 1 seed Dallas, 8 seed Portland. Give me Dallas in 7. I think it'll go 7. I think Dame is just going to, try and do everything he can. I mean, Portland just isn't. They're just not. They're not enough. They're just not enough, to put it simply. Dallas, they went to the Western Conference Finals last year. They have more experience in that system. I don't know if Portland's kind of figured out Chauncey Billups' system all the way yet, but they'll make it interesting. 2 seed Nuggets, 7 seed Grizzlies. This might be surprising, but I got the Nuggets in 4. I think they'll sweep Memphis. They're gonna be missing Jaren Jackson Jr. for a little bit of the year, and I think that might throw them off for this year. Now, the next season, I would expect Memphis to kind of be back in the groove of things. I just feel like this year it's kind of weird now that like Jaren Jackson Jr. is out, because I feel like he's so integral to their defensive identity. I mean, we saw last year early on they were awful defensively, and they weren't even in like the playoff hunt. Then they rose like near the top. 3 seed Clippers, 6 seed Pelicans. Give me the Clippers in 5. They're definitely the better team here, but the Pelicans will get 1. And then 4 seed Warriors, 5 seed Suns. I think this will go 7. I think the Suns will surprise a lot of people. The Warriors are probably the better team here, but I think the Suns will surprise a lot of people in their effort against the Warriors to the point where they're not going to hate on the Suns anymore, at least to the same extent. East second round, 1 seed Philly, 4 seed Brooklyn. And this is so tough, but I have Brooklyn in 7. It's really tough because Philadelphia, I think it's so much better this year. They're looking like I don't even know how to explain it, but a championship culture ready to break out. Just because of the sense where it's like, James Harden's bought in, Joel Embiid bought in probably a couple years ago, and now Tyrese Maxey's on the rise, and they got the veterans. But I just think what Ben Simmons brings as his playmaking and defense, he's kind of like an X factor for them. And Kyrie's healthy, KD's healthy. That's just too much of a duo. I think Kevin Durant is just going to be too much in this series. But man, can you imagine if it went to Game 7 in Philadelphia and the Nets won? I could not imagine that whole situation with them and Ben Simmons. And then the 2 seed Cavaliers and the 3 seed Bucks. This is going to surprise people. I have the Cavaliers in 7. And it might seem like a joke, but the Cavaliers last year against the Bucks played so good. They played so good, and the Bucks really didn't do much this offseason. Guys like Brook Lopez are only getting older. Obviously Giannis is still in his prime, and Chris Middleton as well. Drew Holiday is still too. Of course, he's getting older, but these guys in Cleveland, they're adding Donovan Mitchell to this crew. They got Ricky Rubio back, who could be a veteran leader in the locker room, at least until he's healthy. By this time, he should be healthy. They got Robin Lopez. I mean, he knows the Bucks inside and out. He was there just a couple years ago. So, I have the Cavaliers in 7. Now, the Western Conference Finals. The Western Conference semifinals. Whoops. 1 seed Dallas, 4 seed Warriors. Same outcome as last year. Give me the Warriors in 5. 2 seed Nuggets, 3 seed Clippers. I got the Clippers in 6. I think the Clippers will go up 3-1 once again. They'll lose Game 5. The NBA world will be like, oh my gosh, they're going to do it again. And then I think they'll win Game 6 on their home court, probably in a blowout fashion. So that's how I expect that one to go. Now, the Eastern Conference Finals between the Cavaliers and the Nets, I think the Cavaliers will win again. I think that they'll have home court edge. They'll win Game 1. The Nets probably won't take it too serious. And then they'll win Game 2. The Nets will wake up. But in Game 3, the Nets will win a close one. And then by Game 4, they'll probably realize that they don't have enough legs. They don't have enough gas to compete with the Cavaliers. That's just how I see it, So I actually have the Cavs going all the way to the finals. The Western Conference Finals, the Clippers and the Warriors. Give me the Clippers in 6. I've said this several times that the Clippers are the best team in the Western Conference when fully healthy. No matter the Golden State Warriors, Denver Nuggets, Phoenix Suns, it does not matter. I think that the Clippers are the best team in the West when fully healthy. You get Kawhi and Paul George. You add John Wall, Norman Powell, barely played from last year. You're basically adding all 4 of those guys to a team that was already over 500 last season. That's insane. And the NBA Finals, Los Angeles Clippers, Cleveland Cavaliers. I got the Clippers winning this in 6. I think that the Clippers can match them defensively just as much as the Cavaliers can, but offensively, their star players like, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I think are going to be more efficient overall than maybe guys like Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. And I think that hole at small forward is really what might do it. I mean, yes, you look at some of these other situations here where it's like they play the Nets, Kevin Durant will probably go off. That is very possible. He could go off and he could lead them there. But I think a lot of their other strengths, the Cavaliers kind of combat that really well. Ben Simmons can only play around the rim, and they got 2 elite rim protectors. Whereas, for the Clippers, they can play everywhere. And I think that really changes the game. And, with guarding Kawhi, Paul George, they're insane 3-level scorers, insane 2-way players. Same thing really with John Wall and Norman Powell. Everyone on that team can play basically both ends of the court. So, give me the Clippers in 6. And I got Kawhi Leonard as Finals MVP. I'm rolling back with my prediction the first year that Kawhi was on the Clippers. And obviously that year, the bubble happened. Before the bubble, they were playing insane. And a lot of people thought they were going to win it all, actually. But, I think personally this is the year. I think this is the year. And I believe after this, Kawhi will be going into a contract year anyways. So it'll be important. This will be probably an important season. Not like the end-all, be-all, but I think that they're going to try and, make noise again to the sense where everyone's counted out Kawhi. He probably sees, I'm sure he doesn't say anything about it, but I'm sure he sees, they're not rating me a top 10 player in the league anymore, when just last year I was ranked number 1, number 2, and number 3, which I still think he is arguably the best player in the league. There's a lot of arguments that could be made for a lot of players. I think he still has an argument. He just needs to be healthy and prove it. And I think that's exactly what he'll do, assuming he's healthy. So that's what I got. I think that the Clippers will beat the Cavaliers in the finals, and Kawhi Leonard will be your finals MVP. So a lot of stuff we went through. My mouth is super dry because I don't have water with me. But yeah, I think that's basically going to do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know who you have winning the NBA Finals, winning MVP, who had the best offseason, basically anything in the comment section below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe as well. And, for future episodes, I'm going to be trying a lot of things, like trying to see how I want to do this season so far. So, stay tuned for that. Maybe some old things brought back, maybe some new things integrated. And odds are we probably will get some guests on here too, because I know you guys don't like hearing me all the time. I don't like hearing me all the time either. But anyways, so yeah, I think that's basically gonna do it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm out. Peace.